Okay, so I want to welcome everyone to this week's edition of the Northern Nerdcast, where we showcase the geeky, nerdy people, groups, and events that happen in and around the city of Edmonton. The Northern Nerdcast is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. Please feel free to head on over to albertapodcastnetwork.com for a list of amazing Alberta-made podcasts. We would also like to encourage everyone that if you enjoy this episode, to share it with your friends on social media. This way we are able to help grow the community here in Edmonton and keep everyone up to date on the latest news and information regarding the geeky and nerdy people, groups, and events. Also, if you or someone you know would like to be featured on the show, please feel free to contact us over at northernernetwork.com. Now, let's get on with the show. All right, so welcome back once again. My name is Dan Schessel, and on today's edition of the Nerdcast, we have, of course, none other than the greatest co-hostess ever to be on the face of this planet, Chelsea Thompson. Say hello.
Hi, guys. Man, I love how my title just keeps getting more and more superlative. I'm like, oh. You give me such a great intro every time we do this, Dan.
It's well deserved. Also, on today's edition of the Nerdcast, we also have joining us Krista D. Ball. Say hello.
Hello.
It is an audio podcast in the end, so people
Hello, everybody.
All right, so we are excited to have you on the show. We are going to talk a little bit about writing and all the stuff that you have been doing. But first off, we always like to get down to the soul of each of the person that we have on our show. I don't even ask you if you actually had something, because you said you were packing up and all this other stuff. But do you have, like, what's on your geek shelf?
Well, it's wrapped in bubble wrap and put away so it won't get broken. We're in the middle of renovating. So my husband, for my birthday in June, last month, gave me the new Picard facepalm statue.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was really great. So it arrived. I took it out, went, wow, that's really cool. And then I wrapped it and then triple wrapped it and then put it away because
you want it to get broken.
No, because it's going to get broken. So hopefully, like by the fall, it'll be up on a shelf over here. So
nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's that, and the I think the face palm is really representative of me and my brand. So,
yeah. So far, from what I've been talking to you just before, I'm like, okay, I'm sold. All right.
Yeah. If you follow me on Twitter, you can actually you just know it's me.
Yeah. All right. That is awesome. Chelsea, how have you been? I feel like we haven't talked forever. No, it's not true. We talked for like 3 hours yesterday. Hello, Chelsea? Oh, did you freeze? We lost Chelsea. We got this beautiful, just mug shot of Chelsea, just sitting there.
It's a great photo.
It is
a still. Yeah, it's perfect.
It's perfect. She's
There's two of her now.
That's weird.
Yeah, that is odd. Chelsea, I was just asking, how was your week? Oh, she died again. Oh my goodness, I don't know what's going on today with Chelsea. This is pretty scary. Anyways, we're just gonna skip that. Krista, how was your week?
It's been okay. I'm getting ready for my 20th book to come out, and so I've just been a mess, honestly. I'm living off of carbs, and then 45 minutes before we started here, one of my corgis got horrible diarrhea, and so that's what I've been dealing with.
Oh
man, I stuck in at the perfect time.
Yeah, corgis are adorable, but sometimes you get sometimes they just have like the most sensitive stomachs, and so yeah.
I mean that's what happens when they have such adorable floofy momos. Like,
well, I mean,
trade-off, right?
because I got both types of corgis. So I have the Pembroke and I have the Cardigan, and they're adorable. But my God, they're bossy little snots.
That's amazing.
Well, when you've been the royal dog of choice for several years, it's no wonder that sort of snooty attitude bleeds through.
Well, one of the previous Pembrokes we had got to meet the Queen when she was in Edmonton. So yeah, the Queen called her a chunker, which was accurate. So
no, that's a story right there.
I didn't get to go. I was at work at the time, like back when I had a real job, and as opposed to this lollygagging business I do now. And so my husband was like, you know what? If I don't take the dog down, I'm going to regret it. So he like just skips off work and takes the dog to go meet the Queen.
Nice. See, that is a life choice that I can completely get behind. Right
so
there.
I was at work and I was like, oh yeah, the Queen, all the corgis. Wait a minute. I recognize that dog. Is that my dog? So like it was on the CBC website. I'm like, that is my dog.
Nice.
I know that fat dog anywhere.
I know that mug.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's awesome. I was saying earlier before you got cut off there, Chelsea. I was like, I feel like I haven't seen you forever, but that's not true because I actually talked to you for like 3 hours yesterday.
Yep, it was lots of fun. We were on our a fellow podcaster's show, Mr. Shane Mayo, who's been a guest on our show before. His show, he was celebrating his 100th episode of The Hero Protocol, and graciously invited the both of us on to be guests. And we spent 3 hours dissecting the 20 films that currently exist in their chronological viewing order in the MCU, which was a total blast to geek out like that.
It was fantastic. I had such a great time.
Yeah.
And
then you snuck away to see Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah, had to be done.
Later that evening, I was a terrible pirate and did the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, really?
Yeah.
Oh, Chelsea.
I will probably go see it in the theater as well at some point too, but I just couldn't wait.
Oh. Yeah, it was definitely a good movie. I encourage everyone to go out there. And I took my oldest boy to go see it, and he absolutely loved it. And so it was a good show. It was good times. Yeah.
It just reaffirms why Paul Rudd is so awesome.
This is true. This is true. As for myself, what have I been doing?
What have you been up to?
I did something, and I can't remember what it was now. This is awful. I obviously did the podcast. Oh, you know what I did today? I took the boys out because Pokemon had its Squirtles were everywhere. So we went to the mall, hung out at the mall, and walked around for 3 hours.
And caught a bunch of Squirtles.
That's all we did.
Nice.
Yeah.
On a Sunday.
So the great thing about going to the mall to do it, right, is that there's a bunch of stops in the mall. And not only that, I can use their Wi-Fi because they don't actually have cell phones, right? They use my Wi-Fi from my phone most of the time. And so we can just connect into the mall Wi-Fi. They can walk up and down the mall. They had a great time. It was good exercise for them to just, get out walking around.
I think Krista's right, though. The mall on a Sunday in the summertime. You are a brave, brave dad, sir.
Oh, you know how many times that little one just walked into somebody random?
Yeah. Like I'm not going to go back there except maybe to the food court to grab something until at least the middle of September.
It was so packed in there. And not only that, because again, there was an event going on for Pokemon Go. So there's extra people in the mall just trying to play the game. Because I'm not the only one who thinks of this stuff, right? Like, so yeah, there was a whole bunch of people in there. It was a mess.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they had a great time. We got back home and like, Mom, we went to the mall and we didn't buy anything. We didn't even go in the Disney store.
Mall fail, Dan.
Yeah, I tell you.
That's rough.
Yeah, it was brutal. It was awful. No, they had a great time. It was fun. Oh, what happened to my screen? Oh, I know what happened. So that's awesome. All right, so we are going to take a quick little break. I'm going to fix my screen. But at the same time, we are going to talk about some of our sponsors. Are you ready for this, Chelsea?
Yes, indeed. I have a great sponsor to talk about.
All right. Maybe if I can get my stuff together, maybe it won't be so bad.
Hit me with the kitschy background music.
I will do that at some point here. Nope, not that one.
Wow.
There.
Aw, so lovely and soothing. It's the perfect background music to talk about how the Northern Nerdcast is brought to you in part by the Edmonton Community Foundation. The Edmonton Community Foundation is a great way to put your money to work directly for the charities that matter to you. The Edmonton Community Foundation will work with you to set up an endowment fund in your name. Next, they take the money from your fund, plus any additional money it earns, donate it to whatever charity or charities you pick. Now, you don't have to be rich to set up a fund. The ECF will work with you to put any donation amount you want to work in your fund. You can also get a group of people together and set up a fund to give to a charity as a collective. The ECF also has an awesome podcast, the Well Endowed Podcast. This month, the Well Endowed Podcast is exploring all that the city's lush River Valley has to offer. They go rafting in the River Valley with the Riverwatch Institute of Alberta. They head down to Horlack Park to hear about the Free Will Shakespeare Festival's 30th anniversary. And they talk to Beth Dart and Louise Jason about On the Margin, a site-specific play that you can find in the River Valley at the Found Festival this month. To learn more about the Edmonton Community Foundation, check out their website, ecfoundation.org. Or, if you like to listen to the Well Endowed Podcast, head on over to thewellendowedpodcast.com or find them on your podcast player of choice.
All right. Well, that is awesome. Thank you, Chelsea.
You're most welcome.
On today's edition, we do have joining us today the great Krista Ball. So, Krista, let's start to get into it. Like, because you're for people who are out there who don't or who are unfamiliar with who you are, can you let's go into kind of explain what you do and all this other stuff.
Sure. Who are you and why are you on our show, Krista?
Yeah. Well, I was free and nobody else was. And so I said, sure, it's cool. You know. No, I'm a local author. So look, Edmonton. I've lived here now 21 years, I think. So I'm not originally from Edmonton, but I've been here a long time. I write science fiction and fantasy, and I write historical nonfiction for people who like fantasy.
Nice.
So if you've ever been to Calgary Expo, chances are you've at least seen in the program one of my talks, What Kings Ate and Wizards Drank, the Fantasy Lovers Food Guide, Fantasy Lovers Talk, Fantasy Lover Lecture. They call it different things. So it's always a really popular talk I give every year, and it has a book too. And then I have like another 19 books and other stuff. I don't ask me to remember what they're called. There's a bunch of them. If you ask, I'll actually have to take up my phone and Google myself. I have a space opera series. I have a sword and sorcery series. It's a Finnish series set in Newfoundland. I jokingly referred to it as putting the rural back in urban fantasy. That one is Finnish, but I'm missing. Oh, the series I'm writing right now. And that's the book coming out in a month. So, and that's what I do. I write books for a living.
Nice.
awesome.
And I have corgis.
And that's, I mean, really, that's the real reason why we had you on the show.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Because your dog was
talk about
famous.
your corgis.
Yeah, it's cool, man. It's cool. Like, you know what? They're cool. You know, my poor English Springer Spaniel, she always gets left out. But she's fine too. She doesn't mind.
That's awesome. So, because you write a lot about like fantasy, but also sort of you said food and all that kind of stuff. So, what got you into that kind of stuff in the first place? Like, what was that driving force for you?
Insanity. So I have a history background. So, you know, it's destined to end up in just this horrible spot where, you know, food, history, fantasy. You end up just then everything you write ends up with history, food, and fantasy, including the fantasy, the food, and the history. So, you know, there was a joke where in one of my space opera in the first book, people actually complained there wasn't enough food in it. It was the first book I had written where I didn't have like food descriptions where people could go and actually tweet me and go, Krista, seriously, what's the recipe? And so like my history book, What Kings Ate and Wizards Drank, is it's kind of a comedy history, somewhere between history, recreation, and just slagging on fantasy. You know, hey, like let's go out and hunt a deer in the next hour. Cool. And let's cook it. Yay. And so it's this, so I've kind of ended up in this weird spot where like I go on and I write fiction, I do all that, and still people still want to talk about food. So I recently started a Patreon where I'm like, I'm just going to talk about food and post pictures. And people are like, no, seriously, this is what we want. So I'm currently just started doing a book on Shetland. So Shetland Islands are in technically Scottish. So they're Scotland, Maine, then it's Orkney, and then it's the Shetland Islands. So it's a cookbook from 1925. So I'm doing a recreation of Shetland recipes. The ones that I can. Is really hard to get, like, you know, certain types of ducks here, for example. Yeah. Also, some are endangered, and you're not allowed to hunt them anymore. So,
so I'm going to ask you, how far have you gone to what are some of the lengths that you've gone to get into research your topics here?
Oh, it's for me, it's not enough to just read it. I got to do it. Like I got to do it. So I've back when we had the old woods fireplace, I used to cook in the fireplace, and I baked bread in the fireplace on the ashes and on rocks and coals, the whole 9 yards. We made this is one of the most popular stories from the What Kings Ate book, is that I decided to recreate lard done in the old style through an oven. And so when it cooled, I was transporting it, and my corgi tripped me and ended up covered in lard. And it splattered the whole wall. And so the book is 5 years old. And then I was doing this maybe 2 years before the book came out, obviously, because I had to do it. And we only got the lard out last October, and that was when we ripped down the wall. There has been a giant lard splatter all up the wall. And on the floor, until we ripped out the floor, that section never quite was as clean as any other section on the floor, because the
lard trapped all the dirt.
You just couldn't get it out. And so, yeah, I mean, I've done that. I once dressed up in mid-Victorian clothes and cleaned the front of my steps in the way that a housekeeper should.
Oh, wow.
And ate the appropriate breakfast. It's just weird. It's just weird.
That's dedication to your craft.
It's just weird, man.
I gotta say, one of the things I probably should have mentioned at the beginning of the show, because we were talking about our week, and I'm trying, what did I do this week? Actually, I went to the Ukrainian Cultural Heritage Village this weekend.
Oh,
This
cool.
week. Sorry. So it was like on Thursday or Friday. I can't remember. Yeah, it was Thursday. And what a really cool place that is. And to see some of the old ovens that they had, like there was one house there that was they were really like a 1920s like house. And it had like the whole entire house was like all oven. Like that was the whole house. I'm like, this thing is crazy. This is like the best looking up. Like it's a big giant bread oven that you're gonna bake like 12 loaves of bread in at once. It was incredible. Yeah. So food has always been like a part of us. Like no matter where you are, food is a common thing. And yeah, that is awesome to have that and to be able to hear some more of the history. And that is always exciting.
Oh yeah.
We've got a great question, actually, it looks like in the corner from Dog Daytona about your food experiences in your research.
Okay.
You want to read that out, Dan?
Yes. It says, what is the weirdest thing you have ever made or failed at making and had to rewrite because it either tasted horrible or anything?
Oh, well, okay. So there's 2 history books. There is only 2 recipes in the 2 history books I have not either eaten myself or cooked myself. So one is just a regular beer. I was like, I'm not going through all the trouble of making this. Like everyone, you know what beer tastes like.
Yeah.
But one of them is called cock ale, where it is. No, you heard me right. So it is beer partway through the fermentation cycle, and then you take a dead chicken with the bones, you bash it around and break it all up, and then you put it in a sack with some spices, and then you stick the chicken, it's raw, into the beer. You let it soak for, I think it's 10 days, and then you take out the chicken, and then you finish the cycle of the beer. And I have been trying to find somebody to do this for me. And nobody will.
No.
And the household took a vote, and they said no, I wasn't allowed. So at the time, the kids were a lot younger, and they were like, no, this is too far. Like we put up with the fermenting mushrooms on the counter. We put up with the weird stuff cooking in the fireplace. No dead chicken soaking in beer. We're done. Bye.
Okay, so I need people who are either listening to the show or watching this to make this happen. We need to.
There was a couple of guys who wanted to try it, but when they sat down and looked at, because I'm using, I think it was an 1825 British recipe. They were like, there's no measurements, and I'm like, no, because there's no measurements in anything. You know,
No.
they remind you to gut the chicken, for heaven's sakes. I mean, this is what we're working with here. You know, so
it's take these parts and figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, work on taste.
It's like fermented beer chicken stock.
Yeah. I'm sure it tastes
Except
good.
for
Yeah.
raw chicken.
Well, when you're making chicken stock, you can use a raw chicken. I mean, in the boiling process of making stock, cook the chicken, but there's no boiling here. There's only fermenting.
It will be fine. You know, maybe just only take slight sips.
I'm curious
and
if
then
that
wait
would
24
be,
hours.
Would it be fine? It should be. Right? Like the alcohol would burn that out, right? Like that's.
Well, the alcohol in the fermenting process, the good bacteria will eat the bad bacteria.
Yeah, that's the way it works.
Don't try this at home, kids. Don't.
So
please don't sue me if you ended up in the hospital for a week.
So now I want to hear all about the fantastical story that I have no doubt that it is. You mentioned earlier that you used to work a regular person job.
Yeah.
And then you gave it all up for this fantastical life of a historical food and fantasy writer.
Yeah.
And I want to know what triggered you to pull that trigger. What happened to make that amazing leap in your life?
I had left. I used to work at the Mustard Seed, so I used to run the food program for the Mustard Seed. So for those of you who don't know, it's a homeless and marginalized person drop-in center, and
it's an amazing program. Everybody should Google it.
Mm-hmm.
We used to serve food. I don't know. I think they still serve meals, but at the time we served meals, and so I was in charge of that. So I used to look after that, and obviously you can imagine that's a high stress job, and has a high burnout rate. And I decided towards the end that it was time for me to. I wanted to take a less stressful job so I could finish my first book. So that was the point of it. I wanted something that when I went home, I just went home, and then I could finish it. So I went and I contacted this educational company because you get to have contacts over the years. And I just said, can I come work for 6 months? I'll just work part-time. It's all good. And they're like, okay. So I stayed there 7 years. And because they would never let me leave. I kept threatening to quit. Like every 6 months I threatened to quit. And they still, I don't know, I got tricked.
Just when you thought you were out, they pulled me back in.
So I published several books. And then there came a point when I would actually have to ask them for time off because I needed to finish books and I was making more money off the books than work. But they would accommodate me because they want me to come back and do the work. So they had to do layoffs. And I was like, guys, I've been trying to quit for 7 years. Goodbye. Let somebody who needs a job stay. Like, I'm gone. And so that was 3 years ago in May. And it's been... I'm so spoiled. I mean, let's be honest. I rarely put on pants until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I write. If you follow me on Twitter, you will see these pictures of me writing on my deck. And I have a huge deck, and it's surrounded in umbrellas and trees and flowers. And this is where I've been writing all summer with 2 corgis and a spaniel and a bunch of cats. I mean, I have a great life, and I really appreciate that I have so many readers who have allowed me this life, so it's been good. It's been lucky.
That's incredible. Now I'm going to ask, what do you have to maybe say to people who are sort of in that same position? Like when they're at that moment where they're like, oh, should I do this? Should I go out and make that leap to become a writer or to follow your dream? What would you say to people like that?
Well, it helps. Okay. So you got one of two choices. If you have a partner who has a good job, that makes it easier to make the leap. But then there has to be a lot of rules when you do that, because just because you're home doesn't mean you're not working. So there's a lot of, my husband and I, because he's worked from home for so long, he gets it. So it's not even an issue for us. But I know people who that's their struggle. It's the relationship stuff and respecting the time. If you're single, I think if I were single, I would still keep a part-time job just because I'm nervous. I'm always nervous about stuff. And so, I grew up really poor. And I will have this lifelong terror of not being able to afford my rent, having experienced that many times in my life. And so I think that I could be as rich as William Shatner, and I probably would still have a part-time job on the side just in case I lose it. That's just me. But it's everyone always says don't quit your day job, and definitely don't unless you can.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So while you were working your regular Joe job and starting to write your first book, was writing something that was always a part of your life? And, or when did the idea to write the first novel come along, and what prompted that?
Well, I used to all through school. I wrote all the time, right? I don't know. I remember getting a typewriter when I was 12, and because I am the age where you got a typewriter. I'm probably old enough to be your parents. God. And so when I'm feeling old today. When so I got my first typewriter, it was for homework, and I sat down and I wrote a novel in a couple of weeks. And I think I was 12, and this is like, I don't know, the story about these people whose parents abandoned them, and they got taken by children's services, and children's services wouldn't let them get back together, and they like were trying to, seriously, like I had like a demented childhood, and so it's what happens when you're adopted, man. Like you end up with this stuff, and then I wrote all through high school, the most angstiest poetry that you would ever, like, just the worst.
Oh, but that's the best foundation.
Oh, it's just like, brutal. And I still have some of it.
Do you still go back and read it? That's what
I haven't, but I thought that maybe one of these days I might get roaring drunk and just live tweet my poetry from when I was 13, because I would have to be roaring drunk to be able to do that. And then I went to university, and university was hell. Doing a history degree, all I did was write. Like I wrote for 5 straight years, and then it was like, I want to be a writer, but that seems like a lot of work. And then I hit 30 and I had like a midlife crisis. And I was like, I got to pick it. Either I decide I'm going to write for a living, or I'm going to write a book, or I'm just going to decide that dream isn't for me anymore. And so I decided it was time to get my act together. And so I'm 43. I just turned 43. And I have my 20th book coming out next month.
So what was that first book?
Amazing.
The first book it's called Blaze, book 1 of the Tranquility series. It's a shaky book. I was nervous writing it. I won't lie. But I sold it and it got published. It was definitely my least favorite book. Weirdly, my second book was my favorite book, because that was the book because that book, everyone was kept. I belonged to a writing group, and at the time, the writing group was very much, you need to write a certain way, and how you write, Krista, is not the right way to write fantasy. And I definitely had that shaky feel. And then I in doing the second one, I was like, you guys are full of crap. I'm going to do what I want. And that book is when you see who I am as a writer. That's the one where I write. You figure out that what I do is I don't write great plot. My plots are pretty basic, but you don't care because my characters are awesome and my dialogue is good. And I've always been great. I write great dialogue. And so people love that. And I love that book because it was like, that was when I just gave them the boot.
I always find when we ever talk to some of the authors, it depends on like the type of writer they are, because some are really great at world building, and they love to do that for their stories, and they're great at that. Some are great at descriptions, and they love to write out descriptions. We had one author here, I can't remember his name, or was it maybe her name? Anyways, she really was great at describing fight scenes. Right?
Oh yeah.
And so it's great when you know what your hook is. Like it's good when you know this is how I write, and this is the things that I'm good at, and this is the way I like to focus. And so yeah, that's awesome. And it's great that you can find that, right?
Well, part of I think the entire experience of figuring out how to write is figuring out what you actually can do. And so like I'm at the stage now where I purposely try to write stuff I'm not as good at to force myself to learn new skills and learn to do it different ways. But I still end up writing characters and dialogue and great swearing. Like I think that really I excel at swearing more than anything else. And so, which is funny because for most of my life, I never swore at all. And I hit like late 30s and I was like, threw up my hands. But one of the things I love is expressing people through that. And I know so many people, they struggle with, well, I want to write like this. It's like, well, is that actually your thing though, because you actually might not be good at it. Go try it. Try everything. I mean, worst that happens is you don't like it or you don't finish it. Big deal. Go try something else. Like, you got to try. But part of the trying then is figuring out what you're good at.
And I find that if you enjoy whatever you do, that helps, right? Like, that's the thing that's going to propel you to want to do more and want to get better at something, right?
Oh, definitely.
And so that's a great way to do it, right? So,
and it's hard work. Like, you have to enjoy it, because otherwise it's miserable. like writing is miserable at times. Like, this is like a proper job, and it doesn't go away, and it can be soul crushing if you didn't enjoy yourself. So you have to love it. Like, you have to.
That's awesome. So, do you have any more like stories of some of your books here?
I want to backtrack for a moment.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Because you cracked a joke that like pinged something I just watched the other day about, getting really drunk and live tweeting your old angsty poetry.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're aware, but there is a show currently on Netflix called The Mortified Guide, which is viewed quite a lot. And the show consists of people getting up in front of an audience and reading their old journals from their youth. And man, oh man, it's the most fun I've had watching Netflix in a really long time.
Oh, that's brutal.
So I feel like there's an audience for it. If that ever happens, let us know, because we would be here for it.
Oh, that's yeah. I mean, so people always say, like, you're not supposed to respond to your reviewers. And I very much agree with that. But I think that you can do it in a way where it's funny.
Yes.
So one night I drank 3/4 or a bottle of wine, and probably closer to the full bottle. And I live tweeted responding to reviews. And people were like, Krista, don't do it. Don't do it. And I'm like, no, guys, I'm an expert.
This.
They're like, don't do it. And so people are like, I would quote, like, this book is complete trash. And I'd be like, yeah, you know what? I actually feel the same way. If for me, I would feel that chapter 20 is the low point. And then I would go through like this dissertation of why the person was right. And then they'd be like, I was kind of bored. And I'd be like, you know what? That's fair. The middle was boring. So I was like, Krista, I really love this book. Aw, thanks, Mom. And so, and so after a bit, when people realized that, like, the really mean ones I left out, right? Because those you can't be funny with. But definitely the one was like,
the ones that are trying to pull you out, right? Those
yeah. There was one was like, this was a nasty, nasty book, and I'm like, so I was like, and I went through and I detailed all the nasty scenes and I do mean in all my nasty scenes, across my entire career. And so that's part of the fun. So, but yeah, I've done that. I don't drink a lot, but when I do,
fun things happen.
I'm always on Twitter when I do. It's like once a year, and that's it. Or Reddit. I go on Reddit sometimes and I argue.
Mm-hmm.
I posted this link on our fantasy. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry that I've done that to you.
Oh, that's amazing.
One of the great things about What Kings Ate is that every time people go to Expo, especially because Calgary Expo gets me to come and speak every year, which is so great because you get to build up a regular people, but then you get these new people. And when I give the talk, depending on how many people there, like one year I divided the entire hall into a proper dining hall, and I actually identified who was going to get to eat and who got salt and who got just beer and everything. And I ended up like finishing the lecture sitting in the back with the microphone talking with all the peasants, and we were chatting and answering questions back there. And so it's one of those books that allows me to just indulge the history part of me and also the performer part of me, because I love history and I love to tell everybody how crazy and silly and fun it is. And it gives me a chance to do that. And then I get to go write, my angsty books then afterwards.
We do have one comment in the chat. Dog Daytona is wondering if you've ever done Edmonton, the expo there.
I did a few years ago. Normally, I was somewhere else during Edmonton Expo, so it's been a hard time. And then I was ill for a couple of years, and so I didn't feel up to doing anything. But I submitted to do it again this year, so we'll see. So because they do hound me every year and send me the email going, "Hey,
Yeah.
Calgary Expo went really well." So
Come back.
yeah,
Do it again.
yeah. So so I did actually submit to do it this year. I'll be around, so I thought, let's go see if they can if they have room for me.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure you'll get in. That'd be awesome. So yeah, check that out. You were also at the Pure Spec, weren't you?
Yes, I was one of the guests of honor at Pure Spec, so that was really great.
That's we talk about it often on this show, how we as co-hosts go to Pure Spec every year when it comes out, and what a lovely little festival it is, and con it is, and how we love going there every year, because it's just like, it's a nice mini one, and the community is just so, it's like a cozy con. It's lovely.
Well, I realized that, so when they switched, because they used to be in the fall, right? Mm-hmm. And so then they did that year where they didn't do it, so they could switch, right? Yeah. And we were all sitting around, I don't know, I think it was in January, and we were all emailing each other going, is it just me, or we'd not seen each other in a long time? And I was like, right, because we didn't go to Pure Spec, and we all get together at Pure Spec.
Yep.
And it threw off the social calendar for a dozen writers.
This is true.
It's amazing how after, when you get these schedules of all the cons, eventually you end up having this
family.
Yeah, this your social calendar is laid out for a year, and when one of them mess it up like Pure Spec did that year, it's everything is in chaos. Chaos, I tell you. So
I do like where they put Pure Spec now. I think it's in a great spot.
Yes, I definitely, it's much better. Trying to deal, Edmonton is just awful in November. I don't care what anybody says, it's awful here. I mean, I live here and I hate it in November. And so nobody wants to go outdoors.
Yeah. And I think it was not this year, but the year before is when I first met you. And I'm like, okay, I got to get Krista on my podcast. And it has taken this long, but we finally got you.
It's okay. You know what? It's weird. I'm never busy, and yet I'm always busy.
Yeah.
So it's more of coordinating when I can do something. So, and then podcasters are busy on top of it. So it takes 2 years for us to organize ourselves.
It is.
So.
Well, we're so glad you finally made it.
Yay!
Yay!
All right, so we're gonna take we're gonna wrap this up real quick, and we're gonna have another word from our sponsors. But first off, I want to ask Krista, where can people find you? Where can they find you on Twitter? Because that's obviously where you spend a lot of your time.
Where can they follow your epic live tweeting?
And where can they find your books? All this other fun stuff.
Sure. So you can find me on Twitter, and I do mean literally all the time. I am Krista DB1, the number one, not the word one. Krista DB1. I tweet a lot. Feel free to mute me as you need. Right now I'm playing the game Frostpunk. So if you log into Twitter right now and are wondering why I'm screaming about child labor, it's because I'm playing Frostpunk, and it's basically a Victorian Ice Age Sim City. So just understand understand what I'm doing. Because out of context, my Twitter feed for the last week is pretty horrific. So it's a game, people. You can find me on Patreon as well, Krista D Ball. So right now I'm doing the Shetland book, Cookery for Northern Wives. So I do 2 recipes a month. Coming up this week is brown stew and savory balls. I have already done Skirly in a Pot, and I can't remember the other one. It was Economical Breakfast. It was basically leftovers with curry powder, so you can just that's what I did. So I do that for money. And you also can find my books. Most of them are through the library system, especially What King's Aid. If you're looking for that one, you can get that through Chapters, the library system, all of that. Also, pretty much everything I have is an ebook, Kobo, Amazon, iBooks, that sort of thing.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so we are going to take a quick little break, and we're going to come back. We're going to talk some about the events that are happening around the city. So stay tuned. Okay, so the Northern Nerdcast is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. And if you guys head on over to albertapodcastnetwork.com, there you guys will find a list of amazing Alberta-made podcasts. Now, we have just added a whole bunch of new podcasts to the list. So I'm going to really encourage you guys to come on out and check this out, because there's so many new. We keep adding more and more. I'm pretty sure I said last week, if you guys listened to the podcast, I said we were at over 30. Now we hit our 40 mark. So Go check that out. It just keeps growing and growing. It's awesome. And there's just too many to mention at the moment. So just go over there, albertapodcastnetwork.com, for the list of amazing Alberta-made podcasts. All right. So we got a few events here that are coming up. Chelsea, you got the first one there.
Yes, indeed. So first one on the list is the Women in Games Edmonton Meetup, sponsored by BioWare, happening July 29th from 1:30 to 4:30 p.m. So they're back at Biera for another meetup. You can join them for drinks and good conversation and great times. Women in Games Edmonton is a monthly meetup where friendly, game-loving female and non-binary game developers and allies can share stories and ideas, and people of all disciplines and skill levels are welcome, and you're encouraged to show off your work to peers. So Women in Games is dedicated to a harassment-free meetup for everybody, regardless of gender identity and expression, sexual orientation, disability, body size, race, or religion. So it's a really awesome, inclusive community. If you are a gamer looking for a safe space to come on out and share your work and talk about games, this is a great spot for you. Again, that's Sunday, July 29th from 1:30 to 4:30 at 9570 76th Avenue in Edmonton. Tickets are available at Eventbrite.
Awesome. We also got on July 22nd, Star Wars watercolor painting, and this is hosted by Yeg Social Painting and the Gamers Lodge. So this is at the Gamers Lodge. You guys can get tickets at yegsocial.com. And this is coming on out to the Gamers Lodge and learn some watercolor techniques from Yeg Social. At the end, you will go home with a beautiful piece to add to your Star Wars collection. Tickets are $25 and include all instructions and supplies. Get them here at yegsocial.com/events. All right. We also, and that's again happening on July 22nd at the Gamers Lodge. Moving along, on August 9th, we have Fragapalooza. This is 4 days of awesome gaming in Leduc. Big giant LAN party. It's going to be great. They do it every year, and it's absolutely fantastic. So if you're a big gamer and you want to just go hang out with a bunch of gamers, Fragapalooza is definitely the place you're going to want to check out on August 9th. And this is, again, happening at the Leduc Recreation Center. And this is 4 days of awesome gaming. And on August 10th, also on the same weekend, is Animathon. And it drives me crazy that these two giant events happen on the same weekend every single year because they're both awesome. And so this is happening on August 10th. And this is actually happening not over at Grant McEwen like it normally does. This is actually moved over to the Shaw Conference Center.
It's gotten that big.
Crap.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is happening. You can get tickets over at animathon.org. And yeah, go check this out. You want to see cosplayers? This is definitely going to be the place to go see cosplayers. I mean, this is a fantastic time. Everyone is so friendly. And yeah, it's just a great event.
It just means you got to split your weekend. Save a day for Fragapalooza and a day for Animathon.
Yeah. All right. And Chelsea?
We also have coming up August 18th, Saturday, August 18th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Yego, Edmonton's #1 Lego Festival, brought to you by AIMBOT, the Alberta Institute of Mentors and Builders of Tomorrow, who have been guests on our show and are lovely human beings. They are hosting that at Millwoods Town Centre. There will be amazing displays of amazing builds made by master builders from AIMBOT, and stations for everybody to come get their creative Lego jam on. It's a great, super fun time. If you are a Lego fan, definitely head out and check that out. Again, that's August 18th at Millwoods Town Centre from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And next on the list, we have Girls Learning Code, Programming with Ruby. So this is hosted by Canada Learning Code, the Edmonton chapter. It's happening at Jobber down on Jasper Avenue, 10520 Jasper Avenue, on Sunday, August 26th from 1 until 4 p.m. Computers don't really understand English, so how do we communicate with them? Through programming, of course. Ruby is an open source coding language that allows us to speak to our computers through step-by-step instructions. So if you've got a young girl in your life who is curious and innovative and looking to learn more about computers and programming, definitely take her down to check this out. Again, that's Girls Learning Code, Sunday, August 26th from 1 to 4 at Jobber on Jasper Avenue.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the Nerdcast. Thank you, Krista D.
Thank you
for joining us. Thank you, Chelsea, for coming out, as always.
Thanks for having me, as always.
That's it. Once again, where can people find your stuff there, Krista?
Oh, I'm online. Just Google me. You'll find, and if you get lost, show up on our fantasy on Reddit and you'll see like me everywhere. It's all good.
That's awesome. All right. So I want to thank everyone for watching this edition or listening to this edition of the Nerdcast. I would like to ask everyone out there, if you can, to share it with your friends on social media. The Northern Nerdcast is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATV, and is produced by myself, along with Chelsea Thompson and Trina Schessel. You can find more information about the Northern Nerd Network by checking us out on our Twitter at Northern_Nerd, on Facebook.com/Northern Nerd, on YouTube.com/Northern Nerd Network, and on our very own website, NorthernNerdNetwork.com. All right, so that's it. That's all. I want to thank everyone out there, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.